been following the ANCA Facebook page this afternoon, you certainly saw the protests that took place at the White House and at Sheridan Circle regarding President Erdogan of Turkey's visit to Washington, D.C. And more recently, just a few moments ago, you may have seen Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey. He's the ranking Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He took to the Senate floor and proposed a very exciting and very promising pathway forward for the Armenian genocide resolution. He proposed fast-tracking the resolution, or requesting unanimous consent for the consideration of S.Res.150.
Yes.
So what would that mean, Tereza?
So fast-tracking is essentially guaranteeing that you have unanimous consent. It is the sense that Senator Menendez and all of us have, is that if this were to go to a vote, we would have a supermajority, overwhelming majority supporting this, just like we saw in the House of Representatives with the 405 members who voted in favor, and many of whom who weren't present to vote, putting out statements saying, should I have been there, I would have voted aye. Mm-hmm.
So basically, Senator Menendez proposed this to the Senate as a body of 100 members and said, I request unanimous consent that the Armenian genocide resolution not need to go through committee, because there's been plenty of committee hearings on this over the years, that it need not be go through the formal process of reaching the House floor, but in fact, with unanimous consent, the support of all 100 senators, will go directly to the floor, and their members could vote up or down on the issue. We're confident, as Tereza said, that a near unanimous vote would greet that legislation, but this process, this fast-tracking or hotlining or the unanimous consent request, does give any senator the chance to step up and stop the process. And what did we see today?
We definitely saw Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina come in and stop it. Not on the merits of denial. He actually did not temper that and noted he does not want to argue historical facts and was sympathetic to the issue, but made the case that they in hopes of, and I'm quoting, in hopes of finding a resolution to the S-400s, maybe this wasn't the right time. And we've heard that quite a bit.
Yeah, for about 100 years. There's always been it's not the right time, or there's some other contingency or expediency argument to be made. And this is like 104 years out, Senator Graham marching out the old, well, what about this or this or this? You know, we can't really speak the truth. We can't really stand up to lies. We can't really assert any sense of American dignity at any level, because there's some deal that needs to be done or some kind of compromise that needs to be made. It's a rather bankrupt idea and certainly an outdated idea. And in the wake of the House vote, really out of step, what he's basically saying is, in a sense, he's surrendering. He's saying, I know that should this get a vote, it will pass.
And my vote will be an aye vote, essentially.
Yeah. So like here's a proposal we would have for Senator Graham. If he doesn't like the resolution, he should vote against the resolution. If he thinks the resolution will pass, then the will of the Senate should be expressed, and that would be in the form of an up or down vote. That's all we've asked for. That's all we asked for in the House. Speaker Pelosi gave us an up or down vote, and you saw the result, 405 to 11. The percentages, the numbers, the proportions would be similar in the Senate, maybe even more in favor of near unanimous passage, with folks like Graham saying that they're not inclined to vote against it. So what he's doing basically is saying, the majority has the power to block senators from voting, and we're going to exercise that power to block senators from voting. And this is a foreign gag rule, Recep Erdogan's gag rule, enforced, sadly, through, at one level, Senator McConnell, and now at another level, Senator Graham.
And Senator Graham is in an actually interesting position, because he was one of the 5 senators that was present during the meeting between the 2 presidents. And if you ask me, his statement on the floor wasn't coming with a lot of confidence that we know Senator Graham to have. He seemed, the word hopeful, as the most powerful entity in the entire world, the U.S. doesn't hope for things. It strategically works towards things. And to hope that holding back on a truthful recognition on the policy on the Armenian genocide is going to get them closer to a deal on the S-400. Frankly, they had hoped that before, and it got them the deal on the S-400s in the first place. Yeah. So we are urging our senators to not come in the game of chess.
Yeah.
In terms of negotiation, not to come from a point of weakness, but to act like the superpower that we are.
Yeah, Senator Menendez said that today. He asked his colleagues in the Senate to consider who is the superpower here. Why are we letting Turkey dictate terms? And going back to this hope idea, the hope idea is what Graham is saying, what Senator Graham is saying, is that because we have hopes for Turkey's actions or response, he's saying that this issue should be held hostage to some action that Turkey may or may not take.
And here's who's holding it hostage. President Erdogan.
He spoke today. He spoke today in the White House with President Trump looking on, passively, as he engaged in the most toxic forms of genocide denial. Somebody has told Erdogan, maybe it was President Trump, maybe it's somebody else, that he gets a vote in the U.S. Congress. Clearly, he didn't get a vote in the U.S. House. He thinks maybe he gets a vote in the U.S. Senate, but he doesn't. And that's our job. That's what we need to do. I know that we've had some recent additions to the list of sponsors for the S.Res.150.
So, the 405 didn't come overnight. It's been years and years of advocacy on behalf of the ANCA, you making phone calls and letters to your members of Congress, building relationships with them. And once the vote was done, the next day we were actually on the Senate side. All the volunteers that you had seen over the course of the vote happening on 405 hit the Senate side the next morning. And they met with all 78 senators who hadn't signed on yet.
Like the last of the presidential candidates, I understand, came on.
Yes. Senator Booker came on. Senator Mitt Romney came on.
Romney, that's right, former candidate.
Yes. Senator Cornyn came on.
From Texas, very senior Republican leader in the Senate.
And this morning, Senators Casey and Senators Bennett from Colorado came on. And during the actual meeting between the two presidents, Senator Rosen came on. And Senator Rosen, actually, after all the meetings that we had here in D.C., our Nevada ANCA team, Armenian and company, went back to the district and requested meetings in district immediately and spoke to the staff, spoke to the state directors, and were able to get the Senator Rosen on board, and we're hoping that their second senator will be coming on shortly.
Yeah, this is, as Ted has mentioned,
grassroots advocacy.
Grassroots advocacy, and we're grassroots because we're the ANCA, and it's a game of chess because we're Armenian, and this is a game of chess. And the move in the House was a powerful move. The fact that we're building support in the Senate is further progress. And what we're basically doing here is we're going to get having gotten the House in place, we're going to move intelligently to get the Senate in place, and then the king is going to be checkmated. There'll be nowhere to go. Ultimately, this president will find himself in an untenable situation, unable to sustain this kind of like craven appeasement of Turkey. That's not sustainable. I think we all know that this idea of Erdogan getting the red carpet treatment is like it exists at the level of the White House, but there's nowhere else in American society, civil society, government, state government, the congressional environment, Capitol Hill, nowhere else is Erdogan viewed as anything other than a foreign thug and a dictator. So his ability to sustain a grip over U.S. policy, it's really slipping, and it exists basically at the White House and at the level that the White House is able to exert pressure on the Senate. But that's not going to last. So getting Booker and Rosen and Cornyn, Bennett, Romney, and other senators every step forward is one argument less that McConnell has to say no. And eventually he's going to turn to President Trump and say, Donald can't do it anymore. The U.S. Senate is going to follow the U.S. House because we follow, frankly, the will of the American people. And if you want to, give political cover to this foreign dictator, that's your business. It's not going to be the business of the U.S. Senate. So how can people help, Tereza?
So there's a few ways. You got to go to anca.org/genocide, and you have to send a letter. If your senator has already signed on to S.Res.150, they'll get a thank you note. And trust me, those thank you notes really do matter. After H.Res.296 passed, there are individuals who walked into their district offices, and staffers already knew them and said, "We know why you're here. We've been getting the calls. We've been seeing the emails. We appreciate that you appreciate our vote." So your voice on the thank yous matter just as much as your voice on urging your senators. If your senator is a co-sponsor, urge them to call Senator McConnell and ask for this to become a vote. And the action online does help you do that. If your senator is not a co-sponsor, send that letter to make sure that they come on, make a phone call. It is time that we drive this home, and we really have the opportunity to really drive this home.
Yeah, and a lot of folks, like if you live in California, it's important to get those thank yous in and encourage them to talk to the majority leader. If you're from Massachusetts, New York, all these states are by and large very supportive, but there are a bunch of states where people aren't yet supportive. So if you happen to meet an Armenian who lives in Oklahoma, Nebraska, Kentucky, South Carolina, talk to Senator Graham. Your voice is especially important at this time because getting those senators on board will boost our numbers, but also show that there's a very broad geographic, demographic base for this issue, and it's going to be harder and harder for those who want to stand in the way. The Senator Grahams of the world, their obstruction is the clock is ticking on their ability to obstruct this measure.
Keep in mind, during the two presidents meeting in the conference today, during the press conference, President Trump didn't actually include reference to the Armenian genocide and the House resolution in his remarks, but President Erdogan spent a good 3 to 5 minutes discussing how that resolution affects or affected U.S.-Turkey relations, and I would call it a threat, but pointing to the senators and noting that he had been very clear to our U.S. senators on how that passage of S.Res.150 would affect relations on the Senate side. I take that as a threat.
It is a threat, and it's like what a nervy son of a gun. That's the nice words I'm going to use.
Well,
what a nervy son of a gun to come here to the United States, to Washington, D.C., place where he had to send his soldiers to beat up Americans just a couple of years ago.
U.S. troops.
Yeah. And then,
in the Middle East.
And then, to make threats like that, like, this is the very definition of a bully. The very definition of a bully. And it's all the more important. Let me say this. Let me add a thought, which speaks to why we protested today. We have a very important argument to make on the Armenian genocide. We also have things to say about U.S. policy on the Kurds, on Cyprus, and a range of issues. And those are all important issues. At another level, a different level, there's the issue of Erdogan having beaten up U.S. protesters just 2 years ago, getting a free pass from Trump, right? Trump never uttered a word of protest about that attack. And then being invited back, basically with the red carpet treatment. That's wrong. Set aside every equity, every argument, every interest that we have as Armenian Americans. That is just wrong. As Americans, we can say that it's just unequivocally wrong. The president, we can agree or disagree with him on any set of issues, but he's got to be the guy that stands up and says, you know what, foreign dictator, foreign thug, foreign, president or prime minister, you don't get to do that on American soil. That's a message that's I would say, above any other message we might deliver. And President Trump, just as he's fallen short on the Armenian genocide issue, has fallen really short as just a basic American leader, someone who would defend our constitutional rights. The last time I checked, the First Amendment still applies. Yep. We still have our constitutional freedoms, and just except they're not being defended by our president, which is sad, which is a sad testament.
So that is to say, go to anca.org/genocide, take action now, send that email right now, right as this is happening, and make a phone call to your U.S. senator. Call the district office, call the U.S. D.C. office, call them every day until your senator is signed on. Get your friends, get your family members, get your church community, get your Greek friends, get all your friends to make this phone call. Let us drive this home and get the passage of S.Res.150 in the U.S. Senate on the Armenian Genocide Resolution passed.
Yes, and we're going to start wrapping up now. I know that we will sign off in just a second, but I do want to say that we welcome your thoughts, your feedback, your constructive criticism, your unconstructive criticism, your suggestions, complaints, criticisms, whatever it is. They mean a lot to us. So feel free to weigh in on our Facebook page. I believe this is also being broadcast on our Twitter account and via the YouTube channel. On all those channels, feel free to weigh in with your thoughts. If you want to share something privately, send it to anca@anca.org. We look forward to hearing from you. We can maybe arrange a time to talk on the phone or to exchange ideas online. But your ideas really matter. We'd love to hear your thoughts about this latest Erdogan visit, about the genocide resolution, how we can move forward, and how you can be part of our progress. So with that, I think we want to sign out soon.
Yep.
And how do we do that? We do that right here with that red button, Dennis. Can you